It's Wednesday night, and we're live from Oakdale, Washington, in the Educated Touch studio. Welcome to Ethics Outside the Box, with your host, Nathan Nordstrom. Special guests include MK, Brennan, and you. Here he is, Nathan Nordstrom.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another fun installment of Ethics and How People Do Things Wrong. We are together to figure out a little bit more about how we can keep ourselves strong as massage therapists, how we can really help the profession, and how we can keep ourselves ethically stable and secure. Now, there's one thing that I really do love about the concept of having an ethically sound life, and that is how you feel internally when you're looking at goals and challenges. You can actually feel comfortable knowing that you're working to improve yourself. One person I know who always works to improve herself in more ways than I've ever known is Miss MK Brennan. MK, welcome and thank you for joining me today.
Oh, it's always a pleasure to talk with you, Nate. Always.
Oh, thank you, thank you. MK years ago became one of my adopted moms. I happen to have a few of them, but whenever I'm at a conference, I am always excited to go and sit down with MK and talk all sorts of different things, including policies and structures and larger than us policy procedural type things. And she really has a good grip on a lot of things. MK, what are you doing in your life today? What's going good? What's working for you?
Well, life is going fairly well. For some people in this listening audience, they know that my leg broke last year, and that has been healing after a second surgery. So I'm learning to walk again and doing that fairly successfully. Business-wise, I did have to close my massage practice, but I remain as president of the Society for Oncology Massage. And I continue working for the Massage Therapy Foundation on the writing group, and will be possibly, depending on the board, becoming the co-chair of a committee for that.
That is awesome.
That's probably a preliminary announcement. It is up to the Board of Trustees.
It is. And I have to say, you have helped in so many different committees, and the foundation is one that I always giggle whenever I'm talking to them and they're talking about their great volunteers and your name comes up, because they're always glad that they have people who think and work in different ways than they do, and you're notorious for being a quality massage therapist who really has a passion for it and wants to find the right words to make everything work. So thank you for being there.
No problem. The writing group has been very interesting. I don't know if people have seen what we have done, but we take research articles and kind of rewrite them so that they're understandable and applicable for massage therapists. And those are generally have been in Massage Today.
And Massage Today has a really good relationship with the foundation for those. I'm always impressed. There's a couple of people who wanted to say hello to you real quick. First, Jennifer Cole, Jeremy Burrows. We have Bruce Baltz, who says, "I'm looking strong," and hi to you. I don't know why you're not looking strong, but hey, whatever. Colette Wilson says hi, and there's a lot of I love yous to everyone around. With Darylyn Gilmore is also saying hi. So welcome, Facebookers. We are definitely going to be looking at some fun topics today. MK, is there anything that has been challenging you of recent that is something you can generally share or would want to generally share?
In terms of what?
No, we're going to stick with ethics.
With ethics. Well, within my day job, for those who don't know, I'm manager of a case management department in a hospital. So there's always those challenging cases. Massage-wise, I also, in closing my practice, there were, some issues around that. How do I go about that? Who do I get in? How do I advertise? To have a massage therapist in taking over my space what am I looking for, and how do I refer then my clients to that person?
Yep. I've played that game as well. That becomes a real difficult challenge because when we look at why people come to us as a massage therapist, we then have to start thinking about, it's not just why they come to us, but it's why they come for a massage, and what is it that that person's going to give to them that you don't, or what is it that you gave to them that you may or may not be able to pass on.
Right.
I don't know how everyone does what they do as a business. There's a lot of unique challenges to how all that goes, but I'm so glad that I as well stopped my practice back in February, and it was really hard because I still get messages and emails from clients who say, "Hey, are you coming back yet?"
Yes. Well, and there's also that other piece, Nate, about what do you do with all the records?
Yeah.
I've moved everything in boxes to my house.
Yep.
Now what? How long do I have to keep those? I will not be renewing my license, which for me is a challenge, because back in the late 90s, I was the one leading the steering committee to get the licensing bill passed. So it feels a little like giving up a child almost.
Yeah.
So, there's a lot of things related to that. So then I will no longer have the designation of LMBT. I feel I will always be a massage therapist, but I'm a non-practicing. So then how do I present myself in the world?
As a specialist.
Yeah, a specialist.
You're always going to be a SME to me.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I just keep thinking, I could still practice massage under my nursing license. It is within the scope of practice in nursing, but that to me doesn't feel right either.
Oh, the dilemmas. How much I love them. All right. Well, today we're actually going to go down to the standards of practice. We have standard of practice. We've gone through 1 through 4. I always remind people each week that if you want to figure out what the Code of Ethics and Standard of Practice is for the National Certification Board of Therapeutic Massage and Body Workers, you go to their website, ncbtmb.org, and go to the very bottom to Standards of Practice. And as you scroll down the Standards of Practice, you're going to notice that Standard 1 is professionalism. Standard 2, as we scroll down to that, is the legal and ethical requirements. Standard 3, if my computer starts working again, is business practices. No, Standard 3 is confidentiality. Standard 4 is where we're at today with business practices. Standard 4, we actually had a couple of different pieces here that we've been playing with, and we really have been looking at this standard for quite a while in many different ways. But we are looking at J and K specifically, and we have H-I-J. We're going to start with J, and then we'll kind of move into K, because they really kind of play on 2 separate pieces. So J is not exploit the trust and dependency of others, including clients, employees, and coworkers. So are there any ways that you have seen, MK, where massage therapists have exploited their clients, employees, or coworkers?
Well, I think the clients in particular, if you take for granted that regular client, that they'll understand if you're a little bit late. That's not being respectful of their time and not really presenting yourself in a professional manner. The other part I think that is essential for making sure that you're not going into that kind of area is to have really good business policies. What is it? How, when you set up your practice, if you're in private practice or working with others, how is it that you're maintaining that practice? What is it that you will or will not do? What will you allow? Are you going to have a cancellation fee? And will you be, presenting that to everybody, to all your clients, letting them know that in advance, and then adhering to it? That's just one example.
I love that, because there's one piece that I always put, and I don't know why, in massage school, whenever I'm talking to students and they're talking about, well, is it really important to write your policies and have your policies written out? I always go back to, are you going to treat your family members the same as any other potential customer who comes in? And when they say, well, no, well, then that's something you have to write, because there may be an expectation there, either from your family members or from you to your family members, that they don't know. And if you can't hold true to that for every family member, then you have more policies to write, or you have to start holding true to your policy no matter what.
Well, and then you get on a slippery slope too, when it's the good friend of a family member that wants to come in and possibly get that friends and family discount, as it may be thought of. So without those clear policies, that probably need to be reviewed. And as you mentioned earlier, many of our discussions over the years have been related to bylaws and policies. And, I think it helps for the massage therapist to clearly think about how they want to practice. Write it down. The policies don't need to be in legalese, anything like that. No. But it has to be clear, and you have to think of the different scenarios that you may encounter, and then review them, change them, because you're going to encounter new things that are going to challenge how you practice.
Well, what's that statement? There's nothing consistent in what's it? Oh, I've lost it. But there's always change, and new situations always come up. And just when you think, oh, I am morally and ethically stable, you then get blessed with some other challenge, and you go, oh, well, wait a second, what do I do with that, and how do I change? Is this the same situation as every other situation before, or is there something new to this that I need to really address?
Right.
I know several companies looked at this just recently when we're talking about writing policies, especially with male and female clients, as a massage therapy franchise or as a massage business owner. And they think, okay, well, we have male therapists with male clients and female therapists with female clients. And then you have transgender, and then you have so many other aspects. And now they have to go, wait a second, how do we make that policy so it fits everyone? And sometimes you can't, but sometimes you can make it more effective. And simply by making it more effective, that's going to be the piece that really pushes you forward and gives you that opportunity to take it to that next step.
Part of that too, I think within a company setting, or when you're in a multi-therapist practice, even if it's just with one other therapist, to sit down and talk through those things. If it's a franchise, it could be most effective to get the therapist together, get their input on something before a policy is written. If you're working with another therapist or two others within an office practice, get together. And even if you're independent contractors, see where you can, kind of have the same business practices, the same policies for how you're going to work.
Well, that actually kind of comes back to that whole selling your business, doesn't it? Because if you have good soap notes and you have a good relationship with the massage therapist that you're selling to, you have good communication skills, you should be able to really kind of support them in building their practice. Jennifer Cole just broke down breaking confidentially, not keeping good soap notes, not responding to values of clients or employees' time. These are all different ways where massage therapists really can exploit either their coworkers or their customers, their clients. Right. I'm always concerned about the structured models of exploiting relationships more than I am the unstructured. I know this may not make sense in that statement, but when we look at people kind of breaking this concept, when people are exploiting people, not intentionally, for example, they're late and they're exploiting the relationship, but they truly feel bad about it and they say sorry. But yet it happens again and again. Okay, that's ugly. That's definitely exploiting the relationship. The ones that I have concern with are business structures that ask you to exploit your relationships with your friends and family members to create a business model. This, in most cases, is considered a network marketing or multi-level marketing strategy where the business says, oh, hey, you have a built-in customer base in your friends and family. That's creating a dual relationship, and that's the business is asking you to really kind of break and exploit your friends and family for a business gain. And that's really painful to me. Now, I know there are probably multi-level marketers out there who are going to yell and scream bloody murder. I'll keep checking the feed here. But if you can write policies around it, and that will definitely help. But are you actually exploiting the relationship for a business gain is kind of the piece that I'm always concerned about personally. And when it comes into business, when it comes into these are your clients and you're selling them a healthcare piece or you're selling them something, a supplement, first of all, I argue, is it in your scope of practice? Is it something that you can actually give? Or is it something that you're stepping outside of your scope of practice and exploiting them and for a business gain?
Well, and I would say not even just to sell it, but to give advice.
Yep.
Outside your scope. It is a matter of knowing what is your scope of practice. In licensed states, it's clearly defined. You better know it. Don't step outside it.
I'm licensed in 4 states, and I do have to say, originally, I was gung-ho about making sure that I stayed on top of the scope of practice of all of my licenses. I stay on track of 2. The one that I live in and the one that I most likely am working in once in a while. But I mean, but knowing the scope of practice with which you have to abide by really means that you're not going to accidentally break the law. It means that you're going to read it and know it and say, okay, I'm going to choose to break that law, or I'm going to choose to hold true to the law. I always go to ethics and say, you know what, there's an ethical way to break the law. If you're breaking the law, it's going to sound horrible. If you're breaking the law, know you're breaking the law and willing to suffer the consequences for something that you believe is right, even if it is illegal, that is an ethical way to break the law. You are still responsible for the results, and you need to follow those rules. I always go back to the civil rights movements and talk about people who decided to sit in the front of the bus, or people who decided to drink out of a water fountain that they were not supposed to drink out of, and they were willing to peaceably march and peaceably stop when the police tell them to stop and do the things that were told to them. It is still breaking the law, but yet it is the ethical thing to do.
Understandable. However, I think within massage therapy practices, there are other alternatives than to go against your scope of practice or the rules and regs set up for you, or good business practice, especially in those states that aren't regulated. There are ways of being able to approach these things through a licensing board or, in the way you establish your practice. Looking at some authoritative kind of documentation that can help guide you.
I use extremist perspectives when I'm talking about things like breaking the law, because it's really hard for me to kind of say, yeah, everybody should just break the law. you have to kind of go out to this level where it's like, wait a second, that's going to be the few and far between. We don't have people being oppressed by state licensing boards like the civil rights movement.
Right.
And so when we're looking at the law, if there's a law that you disagree with, there's a lady in Oregon, Julie, who was she was very forward about the concept of marijuana and its use as a topical, and she went to the state licensing board and said, hey, I need to know what to do here, and they didn't know what to tell her, so they had to go through the process. But it was because she was sticking to her rights, she was sticking to the policies, sticking to the laws, sticking to the rules. She said, I have to know what to do to be safe, and what the state licensing board, who is in charge of public safety, would want me to do for this. And did a great job for it.
And Julie has also set up a wonderful continuing education course on the use of CBD oil.
Correct.
And is very educated in that. And that's a great path to take. Hearing you say something about breaking the law just is counterintuitive.
When I was in college, I had a civil disobedience class. It was one of the most painful classes I'd ever taken.
I would imagine.
It was hard to catch and understand all of those pieces. So there's other pieces when I look at the exploitation of, we talked about customers and the different ways that customers can be exploited. Employees / coworkers, and I know that they're put together, but I kind of want to separate them out, because exploiting employees, I think, is a different step of evil in my mind.
Well, there's a different relationship there.
That's why is
coworkers,
employee employer versus coworker, or even contractor and contractee. These are different relationships where you have different approved authority and responsibility. And so if I go to the employee-employer relationship and I say, okay, if I'm a boss and I'm hiring massage therapists and I'm knowingly underpaying them, or I am shorting them on tips, or I'm doing something of that nature, those are massive places where you're exploiting not only their trust, but the law. You're not following the law, and it's creating a negative environment for the for the employee.
Again, we go to a place of, if there's clear policies or a job description that the massage therapist has read and agreed to, then it's a matter of having some documentation to back up when you are asked to step outside of what it says in that job description, especially. So things like having to sell product, that better be in some employment agreement, because if that's going to be the expectation that you have to sell so much product through the week that you're working, and it's not in there, that's an exploitation.
Well, you can have exploitation of just behavior, but I think the policies, if they're written wrong, can also be exploitation. If you're writing a policy that is overstretching the appropriateness of what they're doing. For example, you say, okay, I'm expecting you to work 40 hours a week. However, here's 60 hours a week worth of work to do, and I expect you to get it all done. Then you're exploiting it by policy, but you're still exploiting. And that's a dangerous spot that I've seen massage employers get in as well.
I think, though, if it's done appropriately, so the person's hired 40 hours a week, but there's 60 hours of work, and there's that option for them to get paid extra to do the additional work, then it's not exploitation, it's an agreement.
True. And
if it's just that, you need to stay longer to get this done beyond your hours, then that gets into that other arena.
In our industry, I find it really fun when I'm hearing someone who works at a spa who's complaining about a bad relationship she heard with a chiropractor, or someone who works at a chiropractor who's heard about a bad relationship of working on their own and being self-employed, and someone who's self-employed who was once working in a spa and they had this horrible experience. And truth be said, exploitation, lack of trust, and a degrading workplace can happen anywhere.
Oh yeah.
And it's not because this person's a boss or that person's a boss or this person has that license or that person has that license. It doesn't matter where you work or what you do. It is so important to step back, look at what you're saying, what you're doing, and making sure that when you hear, especially in this model, a boss say something, clarifying what it is that they're asking. Because that's part of our communication responsibility as well, is to say, not only is it my responsibility to communicate, but to make sure that my communication is received or perceived correctly. I can't say, well, you misunderstood me, so obviously that's your fault. No, if I was misunderstood, that is my fault.
Well, it's important to have that clear communication and to have the relationship built so that that can take place.
Now, I also then go to coworkers, because as we separate coworkers out, I know that you've worked in offices with other massage therapists, and you've shared space, and you've had your own space. You've had several different models, correct?
A couple, yeah.
Did you have one that you liked more than others, and why?
I preferred having just one other therapist working out of the office space than when we had 4 people and trying to juggle, really I had 5, trying to juggle the schedules. We had 2 massage rooms. It was a matter of, not only juggling the schedules, but who was going to be doing what linens, because we didn't have a linen service. Just use of the oils, everything, because things were shared.
Yeah.
And it could be a little difficult when someone didn't replenish the oils, let's say, or left some linens behind and didn't take them with them. So, I will never forget many years ago, one of the therapists that worked in the office got upset with me because there were nail clippings on the desk. Now, they weren't mine. I don't know whose they were, but it was like, so there, when you're working with others, it is a matter of consideration, but I will again go back to clear business policies and agreements.
Absolutely. And it's funny because it's not only the people that you're working with, but I had a job where I got hired, and they had a male massage therapist before, and he had some sleep dysfunction that he would fall asleep in the middle of sessions. He would fall asleep as he was putting his sheets in the car.
Wow.
And it became a issue for them, and so they asked him to leave. But then as I start coming in, I'm coming in with that still in their memory. And so I had to deal with my coworkers as they were connecting to this history of what a male massage therapist was. Even though they knew I wasn't him, there's still a piece that people connect with of, well, this is the only male massage therapist we've had, you're this. Or this is the only blonde massage therapist we've had, and so you're this. Or this is the only tall or short massage. Whatever that relationship is that people connect with you, there's that transference potential of, oh, well, I have someone who looks like that, so you must be like them.
Right.
And I had that opportunity to kind of go in and really work with all of that and kind of play it through. It took several months for them to just kind of recognize that my shortcomings weren't other people's shortcomings. And then we had a great working relationship. It was so successful because we could then connect as me to them instead of me to what they think of me as possibly someone else.
Right. Well, the other part with coworkers is if you're not able to see one of your clients and another therapist is, there's, those expectations that the client has, or even the therapist has, that you're going to treat your client, if it's my regular client and I can't see them and somebody else does, I expect you to treat my regular client, as I would.
Absolutely.
And that may not be the case.
True. And I guess I've had a lot of assessment training in my massage career.
Mm-hmm.
And so in different spas or different clinics or different doctors that I've worked with, when I have another massage therapist come in and I'm like, okay, so here's what I do with that person. The first statement is regularly, well, how did you know to do that? And so then I'd have to go back in my mind and say, when did I learn that assessment skill? Where and how can I back up the proof of that assessment skill?
Mm-hmm.
Because there have been some assessment skills that I've had that I swear I got out of a orthopedic assessment textbook,
but
I can't find it. And so I have to then go, never mind. I guess I have to divulge myself from that knowledge, which then becomes hard. I love Jennifer's statement. She says, established policies between coworkers is kind of like fencing that makes good neighbors.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely, Jennifer.
Absolutely.
That is a true connection that really needs to be set up there. And I love that you were talking about how you had laundry to do and you had oils and we had to make sure that there was enough of this and enough of that. Writing out that policy to say, hey, you know what, I'm responsible for this and you're responsible for that. It makes it go smoother and
Mm-hmm.
really connects with potential so much faster.
It
So
also comes down to, whose name is on the lease, if it's a leased office space, who's paying the bill, when are other, if one person's paying the rent check, when are the others having to pay their portions? What are those portions of that rent? How are you dividing that up? Is it equitable? So, we used to have it based on the amount of time that you were in the office. We had that divided all out. Everybody was given their allocations and that percent.
what is there a policy that you have recently either gone over or one that is most memorable that you've gone over?
No, it depends on which category you're looking at. With the coworkers, it was certainly a matter of the schedule, adhering to the schedule. If you needed to have a different time set to make sure that you're talking to that other person who uses that room. And I also wanted to make sure that there was a late fee if they were late with the rent check.
Yeah. That's huge.
Yeah, that's huge. I also had I had one therapist who was only coming in once a month. So it was a matter of setting that schedule because she'd moved out of the city, but still had clients. So she would come once a month. And it was a matter of making sure that, she was clear as to what her responsibilities were. Because she didn't use the materials in the office then because she was only there once a month. She was responsible for bringing her own.
I love that when it just gets down to, let's look at logistics and let's just kind of say who's really responsible for what.
Mm-hmm.
I'm always annoyed when I'm paying a service fee for something I don't use.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, how come it's fair that everyone has to pay the service fee when I'm not going to receive that benefit and there's no real value for me to participate in that service fee? And that is definitely a coworker policy that could be just communicated and written to make everyone's needs be met.
Right. In our case, we had set up how many sessions a week were possible.
Yep.
Then it was a matter of percentage. How many did you block out?
Nice.
And that was your portion of the rent.
I like it that way. That really does give more leeway. I think the challenge that I would see on that is the busy times versus the non-busy times. So if you blocked out from 3 o'clock to 9 o'clock every day, 5 days a week, then that's going to be the most used time schedule versus that 9 a.m. to noon or 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. And so that would be another value system to kind of put and use for calculating those.
Right.
I know for me, one of my earliest analysis of my policies came from my sweet wife. My wife and I had just graduated from massage school, and we went to my family's Christmas party. And anybody who doesn't know, I'm from a huge family of 6 kids. And so I went over to my brother's house and came in, and my brother, who was a police officer, said, "Hey, Nate, could you work on my shoulder? I jacked it up at work." And so I'm like, "Yeah, sure. Let's just take a couple of minutes." We went off to the side, and it was front room, and one of the rooms that wasn't being used, and worked on his shoulder. And then his wife came, and I worked on her, and then I worked on my mom, then I worked on my dad, then I worked on my other brother, and then I worked on my other sister and my brother-in-law, my niece, my nephew. I worked the entire time.
The whole family.
I don't even think I ate for that Christmas party. It just, by the time I left, I was so mad at my family. I decided I hated them all, and I didn't want to touch them. I didn't want to be around them. And my wife said, "You didn't tell them no."
Right.
And I realized that my pushoverness, my willingness to be the good brother, was what I was using as my reason to be mad, instead of saying, wait a second, if I would have just written a policy or stated a policy. And even sometimes when you're in the middle of the situation, sometimes you have to say, you know what, I think I need to stop, and I need to start looking at building some rules around this, because I'm noticing that I'm starting to get angry, or I'm noticing that this isn't working for me.
Well, it's that whole setting boundaries.
Yeah.
Setting boundaries for yourself. Now, you could also put another twist on your situation, and that was your Christmas gift to the whole family.
Check written, done.
But it is a matter of the boundaries. So that's the personal issues.
It's hard to write policies when you don't have boundaries. And if you create your boundaries internally and recognize what you put down as an important piece of a coworker or of a work environment, then it's easier to write policy regarding it. But if you're fresh out of school, massage school, and I've seen many of my students who have come out of massage school, and they're willing to work in any office, any place, and so they go in and they start
amount of hours.
Yeah, they're going to work anything and anywhere, and they start putting their nose to the grindstone, and they find themselves overworked, underappreciated, underpaid, or they're into a contract that's lasting longer than they can handle. I mean, all these other scenarios, because they're so excited and so impassioned, but yet they haven't kind of structured themselves to say, wait a second, what are my boundaries so that I can write good policies?
Well, that brings to something, Nate, that you and I have talked about, in how are they trained in school? You know, what are the business practice education that they receive in school that can help with that? Are there exercises on how you write policies, business policies, for your practices in a number of different scenarios?
So I had a aha moment just recently when I was talking to a program director of a massage school. And I was talking to her and said, so how much business do you teach? And the answer was, we don't.
Right.
The reason we don't is because not all of them anymore are going to go into business. Most of them are going to go into an employee type setting. And so they should know how to be an employee already. And
isn't that business?
Because that's part of the business, building your practice in someone's setting, in someone else's office, their spa, whatever it is, but you're still doing business as a business, as an employee. you know what, all of my bosses have wanted me to know business so that I could make sure that I was doing the right thing. A couple of people wanted to say hello to you, MK. First, Carrie Matat. Bruce
Hey, Carrie.
Baltz also says hello, but Dolly Wallace says hello as well.
Hi, Dolly.
Yeah, these are all pieces that when we look at massage school and we say, okay, you know, it's so important for that massage student to graduate with a good MBLEX score and to know their stuff. It's almost more important in my mind that they have interpersonal communication skills.
Yes.
That they have basic business knowledge. They have customer service understanding and experience and expectation. And that they are able to talk about products not as a sales model, but as an educational tool.
Again, the products piece would be within their level of expertise, education, training, and within the scope of practice.
And the thing that I say is not what the product is. I don't care what the product is, but that a massage therapist can talk about a product in an informational, educational way instead of as a high-pressure salesman way.
Well, the other piece I would say is know who you have as references and who to send, you know, when to send out, who to have as a reference, you know, especially for things like products. I think especially of aromatherapy. You know, a lot of massage therapists go on for training in aromatherapy, but some don't, but they think they know what they're talking about. But who do you have as somebody you can refer to for, you know, not only that, but so many other things within the world.
So good reference tools and good reference material, I think, is so important. And it aids in that help of not exploiting other people. And I've done this, let's see, I've moved several times in my professional career and enjoyed opening a new spa or a new clinic or new office wherever I was at. Didn't have any problems doing that. But one of the first things that I always found very important is finding the people to refer to. First thing that I do is I go in, I'm like, okay, who are the local chiropractors? Who are the local psychiatrists, psychologists? Who are the local, and getting those business cards. Yeah, the local acupuncturists. Having those business cards so when someone comes in and says, hey, you know what, let's do a massage. I give them a massage and I look at it and I'm like, you know what, I'm noticing that it didn't change. What I'd like you to do is, do you have a chiropractor? Do you have an acupuncturist? Do you have another medical professional that you refer to?
Yeah, and back in my day, we had the Rolodex. Yeah. I started so long ago.
Yep. Rolodexes are beneficial there. It is those types of tools that really, I think, massage therapists should be conscious of.
The other piece for me, Nate, within any of that and referring out is knowing what your limits are and not thinking, and I don't mean to sound anti-massage therapist in this, but knowing that massage therapy doesn't fix everything. And knowing that there's conditions that may come across as being muscular that are beyond, they're not muscular. It's something else that's much more serious, you know. And I've shared this with you in the past. As a nurse, it scared me going into massage therapy. And this, I went, you know, I started in 91. So we're talking the dark ages in many ways. But going into it a little bit afraid that massage therapists were going to want to treat something as though it was muscular when it wasn't, not necessarily having that knowledge base to think that it would be something else more serious. So it's again, you know, I just, you know, hope, and I know that massage therapy education has advanced greatly since my day. But I think it still has a ways to go.
Karen Matat says, when in doubt, refer out. And I absolutely agree. Yes. If you don't know what's going on, you better make sure that they can find out or you can find out. It's so much more safety. And yeah, That's a huge.
Or even if you think you know what's going on, but there's a little bit of, but it's not getting any better with what I'm doing. I think it's just this, but.
Well, truth be said, I've seen cases where a person comes in, they talk about their lower back pain that they've had regularly, and the massage helps it and makes it feel better. And when they roll over, they always roll over easier. And then they come in that one time and they have the same lower back pain. I do the same exact massage. They go to try and roll over and they can't.
Right.
And then I stop and I'm like, okay, let's do some reassessing. What type of pain? Where is it? Even though it started out as the exact same condition, being able to really rebuild your treatment plan in your mind at any point of the game and say, that doesn't make sense. Let's change this protocol up. I've loved whenever I've worked with chiropractors and they were in the office and they were able to come in and take care of something, or they were great for asking questions. That's always been a good relationship to have. They don't even have to be in your office to have that type of good relationship with a chiropractor.
And I'll tell you, and my concerns, I've loved the pathophysiology books that have been written. I think every massage therapist should read probably every one of them. I once told Tracy Walton, because I ended up one of the reviewers of her most recent book, and as I'm going through it, I'm like, this is so good. Everybody needs to read this. Everybody needs to read this. I want to teach this. But any of the pathophysiology books, I think massage therapists need to read, because it will give them a knowledge base and give them a sense of when they need to be referring elsewhere.
Yeah, and you never know.
Right.
You never know. And I hate to say it, but you had your negative massage moment. With 500 hours of education, we're more of a danger than we are a help to society in so many different ways.
Can be, yes.
Can be. And so coming at it as you did, with fear and apprehension, where you're kind of saying, okay, hold on, we're going to look at this as much as we can in the best way as possible, will make people so much safer than thinking, oh, I got this. I've got 500 hours on my belt. I know how to work with everybody. But we've all seen that in a massage graduate who's excited to get into their practice.
Right.
All right, so let's get into K. So standard 4K, let me hit my right buttons here. Standard 4K states, disclose a schedule of fees in advance of the session. Any thoughts on that? I mean, it's pretty black and white, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's the kind of thing that you've established, and you have your fee schedule posted.
Well, and are there any other businesses that you can think of where you don't have that?
Yeah, a lot.
Okay, which ones come to mind?
Most every. I go to the dry cleaners and it doesn't necessarily say how much it's going to be. I go to the doctor's office, it's not there. My dentist, whatever. They don't have these fees disclosed as to what it is.
And how mad are you when you put $2 worth of quarters in a dryer and it doesn't dry everything? And so then you have to find another dryer and then put $2 of quarters in that one.
I haven't had that experience, Nate, but...
Oh, I've had more time in a laundromat than you have, obviously.
Sorry about that.
No, and I mean, the ones that came to mind for me were a taxi. Even though they do have a little sign that says it's going to be $1.25 for the ride, and then 0.25 miles is going to be this many dollars. You're not going to do that calculation,
right?
That's not kind of that's not your thing. Your dentist, I mean, they'll disclose it. They'll tell you how much is each piece, but they can't tell you what the full dollar cost is going to be. If you do need a root canal or if you don't, that's going to be a big difference. And even with that, when you go to the dentist, which I love and hate all at the same time, and you go in, and then they do the assessment, and then they tell you, okay, here's what we have to do. Check, 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 check.
Yep.
They ask you for permission to do all of that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, do they tell you how much it is? Depends on the dentist.
Or if you ask.
Or if you ask, yeah. And I've had great dentists who they'll say, you know what, I'm going to have you wait just a second. And they put the form up to the front. They have the front receptionist go through and calculate everything else out and put it on a piece of paper and show it right in front of you with what they're doing, what the cost is. And you look at it and you go, oh, I feel like I am empowered to know what I can and cannot do,
Right.
what my choices are and what my options are. Without that, it becomes that little piece.
Well, I think, as I recall in my practice, when someone would call, and a new client calling to schedule a session,
Mm-hmm.
we would talk about the type of work that I did, and I would also let them know up front what the cost was. And even before they asked, though I oftentimes had people asking prior to me saying anything,
Yeah.
what is it you charge for an hour? Because they were comparing my practice to others, seeing, what kind of deals were out there for them. So I think in massage, people are more interested in finding out what your rates are.
Yeah, and I think there's a piece to it. I've seen massage therapists who have run different pay models and different pay scales and different pieces that most franchise companies have a membership-based model concept where, hey, you're going to get this rate if you sign up for a massage once a month.
Right.
And I've seen massage therapists who say, you know what, all I do is sell gift certificates, or gift cards, even if you use it the same day. And so that gift card rate is this, but if you just want me to come out and do something, then I don't bring my gift cards with me, and so it's this rate. There's all those little pieces that should be written somewhere.
Well, there's the family and friends rate.
Correct.
Or the long-term client rate. That's
Yep.
different than the new client rate.
I worked in a clinic that the other massage therapists didn't want to up their rates, but they hadn't upped their rates for 10 years. And I told them, you know what? We aren't the standard massage therapists. We shouldn't be competing financially with someone who's giving a discounted rate for a discounted massage. We should be competing with those people who would come to us.
Right.
And then, of course, their next statement was, well, how about I just put a freeze on the people who are already coming to me and give them the same rate, and then any new people who come in are going to be at this higher rate. And that just made me, want to puke, because I was like, that just locks your books up. And then you have extra levels of having to deal with, wait a second, how long have you been with this person? Oh, you've only been with them for 2 years, so you have this rate. Oh, you've been with them for 4 years, so you have this lower rate. Yeah. I couldn't do that. That to me just doesn't seem like a good, solid business model.
Well, that goes into working with the coworkers.
Yeah.
Effectively, because it would be hard to be in the same office space and, this therapist A is only charging this amount, but this one's charging $20 more an hour.
Yep.
Where's the difference?
Yep.
But then we could get into that whole discussion of what are reasonable rates, and does a lower rate mean an inferior massage therapist?
Yeah.
The, much higher being that much better,
FYI, we did raise our rates, and we raised them across the board. And the person who was pushing against it, her schedule was already full with her clients. So she wouldn't be accepting any new clients anyway.
Oh.
And so we were like, you've got a closed book. That's going to be a different game. She still raised her rates, because what that did was that took some of the people who wouldn't go up and made her schedule a little more open, which meant she was only 3 weeks out instead of 6 weeks out. and she then could see new clients, and she appreciated it once she stepped out of her comfort zone.
Right.
And there is that whole piece of comfort zone and looking at communicating with your coworkers, your employees, communicating with your clients. If it's something that's going to be uncomfortable, it's always better to talk about it up front, early, have it pre-stated, have it pre-written, and then be able to live according to it, instead of having to go back and say, well, for the last 6 months, I've been feeling icky about this whole thing, so I want to make sure that we get out of this icky feeling, because they may not have had the same feeling.
Right. Well, and it goes back to the education and business training they've had.
Yes. Yep.
How do you establish that, and what are fair rates?
I loved in massage school, when I was teaching massage school, one of my favorite lectures was fixed and variable costs of running a business. And the students always hated it, because I'd write it up on the board and say, okay, what are your expenses? Is it a fixed or a variable cost? And they'd then go through and try and figure out, wait, is this a fixed cost? Continuing education. You're going to have the same amount of continuing education no matter what. So that's a fixed cost. Hey, oil. If you don't have that many clients, you're going to use less oil. So that's a variable. And we pulled a whole practice and put it on the entire board and separated by fixed and variable. And then we started putting dollar figures according to them. They were baffled about how much their business expenses ended up being, because they were thinking all of their money was going to come in and they were just going to go and have a great day with $80 to $100 an hour. Yeah, and truth be said, when I look at the AMTA's industry fact sheet, and it goes through and it says, okay, employees at a franchise make this much, and then this much for their tips, and then it goes on down the column, and then out-call massage therapists make this much, and this much with tips, and in hospitals they make this much. I always look at them and say, okay, in my mind, do I know the difference between an employee, an independent contractor, and self-employed?
Right.
Because if you take all of those things into consideration, it evens out quite quickly. Yes, there's some that are going to be higher than others, but it evens out really effectively when you don't have to buy your own oils, your own sheets, your laundry detergent and the use of your washing machine. All of that really does kind of play down to it. So disclosing your fees and knowing what your fees should be appropriately needs to be done. It needs to be reassessed, because if you have an out-call business and gas goes from $2 a gallon to $5 a gallon, you probably shouldn't be charging the same amount.
Right.
So.
Right.
MK, I really do appreciate you joining me today. Is there anything exciting that you've got going on in the next couple of months?
The next couple of months, no.
Massage therapy based.
No, though I will say that folks need to start looking at the Society for Oncology Massage Summit in 2020. We're going to be putting out information about that. It's going to be in April of 2020. And there's also talk about having an international oncology massage summit.
Awesome.
Possibly in Austria.
Oh, darn.
And that would be September of 2020. So.
Okay. So how would people find out more?
Go to www.s4om.org.
Okay. And then for the earlier one for the national, would that be, is the date figured out in the location yet?
Yeah, the date, it's the third week in April.
Okay.
Towards the end of the week. I forget the dates, like 23rd, 24th, 25th of April. And it's always at Northwestern University of Health Sciences in Bloomington, Minnesota. We always go to Minnesota. And they've been a great partner with us for a number of years.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for engaging with me today. I hope you have a wonderful time. And if you need anything, just like everyone else, you've got my number. Feel free to give me a call. I'm more than willing to help out in any way I can.
It was nice to meet you. MK Brennan. Thank you, Nathan. The hour has flown by. We hope you've enjoyed this discussion with Ethics Outside the Box. As you've seen, Nathan uses many second-hand stories of ethical situations. If you'd like to share your story or you have any questions, feel free to contact him and Nathan at educatedtouch.com. If you'd like to register for next week's live webinar, go to shop.educatedtouch.com. Under live webinars, you will see all upcoming webinars. If you have just watched this video and would like continuing education for home study, you can go to shop.educatedtouch.com under the home study options with the date or episode number to receive your exam. If you would please like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel, we will keep you up to date on new videos. If you'd like to attend one of our live courses, you can find upcoming scheduled events at www.educatedtouch.com. Thank you for joining us today. Be well and have an ethical day.